applause for the Hot Damn Band, ladies and gentlemen. I would like to first and foremost welcome everyone here today to Occupy Peace's Peace and Freedom Rally. It is such a pleasure to see so many of you here in beautiful but hot Kingston, New York. It's a very important occasion today. I have the privilege today of introducing some of the finest minds and voices in the peace movement. Our esteemed speakers will include Gerald Celente, the founder of Occupy Peace, Gary Null, the host of Progressive Radio, Judge Andrew Napolitano, the syndicate legal columnist, Scott Ritter, the former U.S. Marine Corps intelligence officer, and Phil Giraldi, the former CIA operations officer. But first, I would be absolutely remiss if I did not acknowledge the hard work that went behind making this place as beautiful as it looks today. Gerald Celente and his dedicated team that includes Jane Campbell, Ryan Lynn, Dylan Allen, and Steve Spinelli worked tirelessly to elevate this beautiful rally to even new heights. So I'd like a round of applause for them. It's absolutely beautiful. It's beautiful seeing all of you. We stand today on the same ground where the country's original freedom fighters stood. Kingston, among all its other history, was known as the breadbasket of the Revolution because its farmers would provide George Washington's troops with wheat and other food supplies as sustenance to defeat the British forces. I've met a few people today from all over the country, and it is exciting to see how many people are here today. I myself flew in from Los Angeles and experienced already some of the charms of Kingston, but I do have a funny story I'd like to share. That wasn't planned. Thank you. I have a funny story I'd like to share. I met a couple at a nearby restaurant, and they asked me what I was doing in town. So I told them I was here to attend a Peace and Freedom rally, and the gentleman told me, he goes, "Peace? What do you mean by peace?" And we casually parted ways. I haven't seen them here today, but I do hope they come by because this rally aims to reignite that spark in all of us. It's high time to get passionate again. History has taught us that complacency is the enemy of freedom and peace. With these speakers here today, and with the energy from this crowd, it is my hope that something happens in all of us today. I promise you, no matter what your views are on any given topic, you will leave here far richer if you listen and have an open mind. Soldiers fought and died right here with the hope that future generations could live in peace and be free. We may not be fighting a war right now with our bayonets lowered, but we are here to make sure that this movement can no longer be easily ignored by politicians and the traditional media. And on that note, it is my great honor to introduce our first speaker. He's a former CIA operations officer. He has a PhD in European history, and worked in the military intelligence and CIA for 21 years. At the start, he left the CIA at the start of George W. Bush's Iraq War. It's my honor to introduce Phil Giraldi. Not yet? Okay.
There's a stand behind you.
Oh,
Where?
right here.
All right, could you hear me? Yes. Okay. Well, thank you for all of you for coming out in this heat. Hopefully you will endure with us because we have a lot of important things to say today. You got to get into it, okay. Is that better? Yeah. Okay. First, I would like to say that it is an honor to be here today, and I hope that this will be among the first of many such gatherings. But I am aware that government and the media will continue to make such developments go away, just as they did at the last peace rally I attended in Washington, D.C. back before the Iraq War. 150,000 people gathered on and around the mall, but the Washington Post and the rest of the mainstream media did not even report the event on the following day. There are some things that I believe, is that okay? Yeah. There are some things that I believe to be true about the anarchy that purports to be U.S. foreign policy. First and foremost important, I do not believe that any voter cast a ballot for Joe Biden because he wanted him to relentlessly pursue a needless conflict with Russia that could easily escalate into a nuclear war with unimaginable consequences for all parties. Biden has recently declared that the U.S. will support Ukraine, quote, until we win. And there are already tens of billions of dollars of weapons going to the Ukrainians, plus American advisors on the ground. It constitutes a scenario in which American and Russian soldiers will soon likely be shooting at each other. The president of Serbia and columnists like Pat Buchanan and Tulsi Gabbard believe that we are already de facto in World War III. And one has to wonder how the White House is getting away with ignoring the war powers mandates in the U.S. Constitution. Second, I believe that the Russians approached the United Nations and its allies with some quite reasonable requests regarding their own national security interests, given that a hostile military alliance was about to land on its doorsteps. The issues at stake, the issues at stake, hello? Hello, can you hear me? Yeah. Okay. The issues at stake were fully negotiable, but the U.S. refused to budge on anything, and Russia felt compelled to take military action. Nevertheless, there is no such thing as a good war. I categorically reject anyone invading anyone else unless there is a dire and immediate threat. But the onus on how the Ukraine situation developed the way it did is on Washington. Third, I believe that the U.S. and British governments in particular have been relentlessly lying to the people, and that the media in most of the West is party to the dissemination of the lies to sustain the war effort against Russia and Ukraine. The lies include both the genesis and progress of the war, and there has also been a sustained effort to demonize President Vladimir Putin and anything Russian, including food, drinks, the Russian language and culture, and even professional athletes. The latest victim in yesterday's news was a Tchaikovsky symphony that is now being banned in Canada. Putin is being personally blamed for inflation, food shortages, and energy problems, which more properly are the fault of Washington. Washington's led ill-thought-out reaction to him. There is considerable irony in the fact that Biden is giving Ukraine $1.7 billion for health care, while health care in the U.S. is generally considered among the poorest in the developed world. I believe that Russia is winning the war comfortably, and Ukraine will be forced to give up territory while the American taxpayer gets the bill for the reckless spending policies, currently totaling more than $60 billion, while also looking forward to runaway inflation, energy shortages, and in the worst-case scenario, a possible collapse of the dollar. All of the above and the politics behind it has led me to believe that the United States, assisted by some of its allies, has become addicted to war as an excuse for domestic failures, as well as a replacement for diplomacy to settle international disputes. The White House hypocritically describes its role as global leadership, or maintaining a rules-based international order, or even defending democracy against authoritarianism. But at the same time, the Biden administration has just completed a fiasco evacuation that ended a 20-year occupation of Afghanistan. Not having learned anything from Afghanistan, there are now U.S. troops illegally present in Syria and Iraq, and Washington is conniving to attack Iran over false claims made by Israel and the Iranians over developing a nuclear weapon. Neither Syria nor Iraq nor Iran in any way threaten the United States, just as the Russians did not threaten Americans prior to a regime change intervention in Ukraine starting in 2014, when the U.S. arranged the overthrow of a government that was friendly to Moscow. The U.S. has also begun to energize NATO to start looking at steps to confront the alleged Chinese threat. The toll coming from the constant warfare and fear-mongering has also enabled a steady erosion of the liberties that Americans once enjoyed, including free speech and freedom to associate. I would like to discuss what the ordinary concerned citizen can do to cut through all the lies surrounding what is currently taking place, which might well be described as the most aggressive propaganda campaign the world has ever seen, far more extensive than the lying and the simulation by the White House and Pentagon officials that preceded the disastrous Iraq War. Can I have some water on you? Thank you, sir. Okay. It is an information plus propaganda war that sustains the actual fighting on the ground, and it is sometimes, in some senses, far more dangerous as it seeks to involve more countries in the carnage while also creating a global threat perception that will be used to justify further military interventions. Part of the problem is that the U.S. government is awash with bad information that it does not know how to manage, so it makes it hard to identify anything that might actually be true. Back in my time as an intelligence officer operating overseas, there were a number of shortcuts that were used to categorize and evaluate information. For example, if one were hanging out in a local bar and heard two apparent government officials discussing something that might be reported to Washington, they were labeled with a source description that was FNU-LNU, which stood for first name unknown, last name unknown. In other words, it was unverifiable hearsay coming from two individuals who could not be identified. As such, it was pretty much worthless, but it clogged up the system and invited speculation when this information arrived in Washington. My personal favorite, however, was the more precise source descriptions developed by military intelligence using an alphabet letter followed by a number in a sequence running from A1 to F6. At the top of an intelligence report, there would be an assessment of the source or agent. A1 meant a piece of information that was both credible and had been confirmed by other sources, and that was also produced by an agent that had actual access to the information in question. At the other end of the scale, an F6 was information that was dubious, produced by a source that appeared to have no actual access to the information, but both these reports would go to Washington. By that standard, we Americans have been fed a lot of largely fabricated F6 fake information coming from both the government and the media to justify the Ukraine disaster. Here is how you can spot here's how you can spot it. If it is a newspaper or magazine article, skim all the way down the text until you reach a point towards the end where the sourcing of the information is generally hidden. If it is attributed to a named individual who indeed indisputably had direct access to the information, it would at least suggest that the reporting contains a kernel of truth. But that is almost never the case, and one normally sees the source described as an anonymous source or a government official, or even in many cases, there is no source attribution at all. This generally means that the information conveyed in the reporting is completely unreliable and should be considered the product of a fabricator or a government media propaganda mill. When a story is written, even when a story is written by a journalist who claims to be on the scene, it is also important to check out whether he or she is actually on the site or working from a pool operating safely in Poland to produce the reporting. Yahoo News lately takes the prize in spreading propaganda as it currently reproduces press releases originating with the Ukrainian government and posts them as if they are unbiased reporting on what is taking place. Another trick used frequently to make fake news look authentic is to route it through a third country. When I was in Turkey, we in the CIA never placed a story in the media there directly. Instead, a journalist on our payroll in France would do the story, and the Turkish media would pick it up, believing that because it appeared in Paris, it must be true, though it was not. In fact, it was totally fabricated. Currently, I have noted that a lot of apparent MI6 produced fake reports of Ukraine have been appearing in the British media, most notably The Telegraph and The Guardian. They are replayed in the US media and elsewhere to validate stories that are essentially false. Television and radio media is even worse than print media, as it almost never identifies the sources for the stories that it carries. So my advice is to be skeptical of what you read or hear regarding wars and rumors of wars. The war party is bipartisan in the United States, and it is just itching to seize the opportunity to get a new venture going. And they are oblivious to the fact that they might be in the process of about to destroy the world as we know it. We must expose their lies and unite to fight to make sure that they can't get away with it. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Phil Giraldi. Our next speaker is Gary Null, the host of Progressive Radio Network.
Nice to see so many people coming out here today. This is about peace and freedom of choice. I'm going to address both. First, I believe that too many Americans, not all, too many, support war because they support violence. Violence in films, violence in video games, violence in how all of the reality shows show the worst and debasement of human nature, the degradation of everything that is of moral and spiritual values. They trash it. They think that ratings are important. As a result, they bring on individuals that show the worst that you could do, smashing into things, yelling at each other, tipping over tables. Since when did that kind of behavior become something that we should be bringing into our bodies and into our minds? Because whatever energy you're around, you become. That's how we develop the epigenetic, meaning the larger environment that you have, all that becomes you. And that's why if we grew up in a household that was not in harmony, if we grew up where people were not giving unconditional love, then anything that was missing in your upbringing, you become. And it's confusing because it's almost all in the subconscious. You're not conscious of why you're reacting or overreacting. And as a result, when kids grow up thinking it's good to play a game, the most popular game in the world is a video game showing individuals killing one another, priding themselves on their success and their slaughter, their brutality. And this becomes the social norm where people don't discuss anything with civility, with manners, with decency, with a quiet mind that listens. A talking mind doesn't. And we are not a silent nation. We are an overly stimulated, hyperkinetic nation of people who act like a bunch of goddamn cockroaches on speed. That's the average goddamn American. Where is Gandhi when we need him? And Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and Muhammad Ali and the Berrigan brothers and all the others who came before them and after them, who were willing to get arrested, willing to get on enemies list because they wanted to tell the truth. They weren't ideologues. They weren't political. They were simply looking for a way to resolve issues. And how you resolve an issue where there's conflict is find what is important in the other person that you also can identify, and what is sacred in the other person you can also associate with. Because when you show that another person is a human being, irrespective of what they've done wrong, you try then to mediate what caused the conflict and what is necessary for the solution. We don't have peacekeepers. We don't have those who go forward trying to find what is special, what is unique, and what is spiritual in the other. In fact, we only hurt those once we demonize them. So if you want to hurt someone, first demonize them. And who demonizes more than anyone else? All of the media. From NPR to PBS, they're all, in my opinion, promoters of the worst of human nature. I wouldn't turn on a goddamn radio show or television show because I don't want to hear someone that's a human form of vomit telling me that they're a gourmet meal. We need to change our mindset. When someone comes to see me who's deathly ill, I don't start with a symptom, whether it's a stage 4 cancer or end-stage dementia. That's the symptoms of a life that has made too many wrong errors, and as a result, the consequences finally accumulated. That is true in everything in life. You don't wake up one day as an alcoholic. You don't wake up one day and you have heart disease when you didn't the day before. We process things. And in the processing of information coming in and the choices we make, we should have freedom of choice, but the wrong choice, which is almost always what we do. Look at all the bankruptcies. Look at all the people buying something they cannot afford. Look at all the medical procedures that are not working. We know they're not working. We know that synthetic hormone replacement therapy can cause a 13% increase in breast cancer, ovarian cancer, colorectal cancer, heart attack, stroke, and dementia. Now, 13% of 10 million people, women, to turn off hot flashes, well, you've got Dong Quai, you've got Vitex. You have herbs that can change the hot flashes because you're rebalancing the hormones naturally. We have natural hormone rebalancing, but we're not using that because that's not what the people who are telling us what to do have been conditioned themselves. So well-intentioned doctors are causing the unnecessary death and injury of tens of millions of people over the last 30 years. Yet every single one of those doctors and nurses and hospitals and administrators never gave back the money that they made watching someone die because they gave the wrong protocols. So if we care about people, let's start caring about changing our mind before we act. Let us look to see whether or not we have made the right choice and who's put the choice in our mind. Edward Bernays was the father of all propaganda, and virtually everything you see today is propaganda. You doubt me? Well, let's just take a look. Look at all the parents in America who have children who are obese, who have diabetes, adult diabetes, and their 6-year-old, who have heart disease, who have high blood pressure, and who are diagnosed with that mythical condition of a brain chemical imbalance, whether it's depression or bipolar depression. A baby 6 months old can be diagnosed with bipolar and given a hard psychiatric drug. If you want to cure mental illness, get rid of all psychiatry and the pharmaceutical parasites that support it. Stop diagnosing people with brain chemical imbalances that don't exist, because you've convinced the world that if you've got depression, it's not because of something in life that should be talked out, looked at, understood. Go back, find out the progenitor of it, what caused it, and bring it forward. When I start to work with cancer, have any of you here, have I ever worked with you, put you on a protocol? Anyone? How'd it come out? Good. I don't start by talking about the condition you have. That's self-evident now. How did you get that condition? How did you get something that became out of balance? Because when you're living a balanced life, mental, physically, spiritually, humanistically, environmentally, you're not giving the body and the mind the opportunity to become imbalanced. But when you don't watch what the television is telling your kid they should be eating, and the kid ends up obese and rotted teeth and gums and infections and doesn't have a healthy biome in the intestines to create a good immune response, and then your kid becomes more susceptible to illnesses that shouldn't even be in their vocabulary, it's because someone wasn't paying attention. Someone got too busy with something that was more important than their child's development. And then when, just this last year, parents started showing up at school meetings and saying, "Are you teaching my kid pornography at the age of 6 or 7? Well, if they are, why weren't you paying attention to the curriculum and how it was taught and who was teaching it and how did that come? That's the end stage of a problem, not the beginning. The problem started a long time ago when we thought we had freedom of choice and we didn't use the right choice. I have a right to take a vaccine or not, but the government doesn't want me to have that freedom of choice. I have a right to take a supplement that can help if you had AFib. All right, what about magnesium? What about the nutrients we know can make a difference? You okay, buddy? All right. That's all right. That's all right. That's a CIA agent. Agent provocateur. Breaker's rhythm. So why do you think people haven't been taking vitamin D3, vitamin C, quercetin, and zinc, and magnesium in order to prevent their immune systems become so suppressed that if they do come into contact with COVID or any other virus, their body has a chance to fight it? Your immune system is your immune system. And why don't they tell you your immune system is the best medicine you have? And breastfeeding is the best vaccine there is. There's never been a vaccine ever that can match your breast milk. All right? But the formula makers don't want you to believe that. And the drug companies don't care for you. They don't give a damn about you. No one in government gives a shit about you. All they care about is how much money they can exploit from you. If they could give you 100 boosters, even on your deathbed, they would do it. to exploit you because they figure you're an average American. A, you're not educated about life. B, you're failing at life. C, you've made too many wrong choices. You think you're too old to change. And as a result, it's easy to exploit them. What they didn't count upon was you. Because truth on the side of one is still a majority. So you don't allow someone to self-inflict out of ignorance. The child's innocent. The child doesn't know what they're eating, the hot dogs, the hamburgers, the pizzas, the french fries, the colas, all of which are inflammatory. And what is the underlying cause of all diseases, or most diseases? Inflammation, free radicals. So when you stop the inflammation, you then prevent that disease. Well, shouldn't we be putting some effort into prevention? We're putting zero into prevention. Nothing, not a nickel. And the Surgeon General is a buffoon. Everyone at the FDA is a buffoon. The CDC, buffoons. The White House, buffoons. Our entire goddamn government, buffoons. Because they don't care about you, they care about power. And they care about making sure that the choice you do use is not a choice that would liberate you from the tyranny of the experts. Stop trusting the experts. Because the same people in the New York Times and Rachel Maddow and all the other program and CNN, they all told you weapons of mass destruction. They were wrong. Vietnam would be the domino leading the Viet Cong to America. Wrong. That Syria was run by a tyrant gassing his own people. Wrong. Honduras needed to have a coup. Wrong. Everything they've done has been wrong on foreign policy. Everything they do on domestic policy is wrong. As a result, we have no infrastructure that works. Our railroads, our bridges, our dams, our dikes. When you have 2.5 million children who are homeless in the United States, when you have 16 million adults and children who are food insecure, when you have 55 million Americans living under the poverty level, when you have half of all Americans can't give you $500 because they don't have it, they're kiting their credit cards, paying one credit card when it gets to the end with another. We are bankrupt because the government's bankrupt, because the states are bankrupt. If it wasn't for the bailout, every single major state would go under. New York City would go under. New York State would go under. Their constitutions don't allow them. So when it gets too bad, they just print more money. And that's your inflation. That wasn't Vladimir Putin who created our inflation. That was spinning a fiat currency that isn't worth a damn. So when it comes time to make any choice about going to war, do your homework. But don't use Google, Facebook, Wikipedia, Twitter, and the media as a guide, because they can't ever tell the truth about anything. And don't just believe everything on the internet, because they've infiltrated the entire internet with misinformation. Do your homework. Do your research. For example, before COVID got really accelerated, I gave protocols for people that would help keep them healthy. Then when we saw, because of the courage of some orthodox doctors that I'd be debating, if it was McCullough, one of the world's greatest cardiologists, the most published cardiologist in world history, I would be debating him. He wouldn't tell his patients to use coenzyme Q10 or magnesium or cayenne. He wouldn't tell them about the importance of alpha-lipoic acid and taurine. I would. So I'd have to ask him, Dr. McCullough, have you actually helped a person reverse heart disease, end-stage heart disease? I know someone that reversed 9 patients who had to have a heart transplant. Dean Ornish reversed all of them. I filmed him. If you watch the film, Curing the Incurable, every one of those people are going to have a new heart. None of them had to have it. That's Dean Ornish, a real hero. Everyone else can only give what they're told works. And who tells them? The pharmaceutical companies. But when was the last time a peer reviewer actually reviewed the actual studies? Zero. You only review what you're given. So you're only given that one study that showed some benefit, and all the other 99 studies that showed toxicity and death, you don't see. Now we're finding out the truth that virtually everything you were told about COVID was misinformation. Everything. And next Monday or Tuesday, I'm posting on GaryNull.com every single part of COVID, and I'm not doing any editorializing. I'm simply putting the peer-reviewed scientific literature showing you the truth that nothing what they told us is honest. And yet, what we have now is we have 100,000 doctors and scientists fighting in a cocktail glass like they're scorpions. Orthodox against orthodox. The ultimate pro-vaccine, pro-science, pro-corporate science, pro-whoever gives them their research grants, against the honest individual scientists and physicians who said, I started treating my patients early. One doctor, I'm having him on next week, 10,000 patients. All survived and overcame because they used hydroxychloroquine, ivermectin, azithromycin, and monoclonal antibodies, and vitamin D, C, quercetin, and the patients survived. Now, he's not alone. Tens of thousands of others. But when was the last time you saw any human being, a board-certified physician, no controversy, not alternative, not just pure orthodox, brought on any show to say, you know, there's another way approach. We should be treating people at the very beginning of a symptom. First day of a symptom, we should be treating them. No, we chose, or Anthony Fauci chose, in conjunction with Bill Gates choosing, and the establishment, not to treat anybody till your lips turn blue and you had to go into emergency care. And then they give you a very toxic drug, remdesivir, which was never tested on SARS. It was tested on Ebola in Africa, and 54% of the people it was given to died. And yet that's what's been given. You're going to see a lot of class action lawsuits on this. All right? So understand something. We've got a battle going on in America in every front. In medicine, for the first time in American history, tens of thousands of doctors are uniting and scientists uniting and pushing back against their colleagues. Because when I grew up, I started in New York when there were only 7 holistic doctors. All were under attack. None of them hurt their patient. They helped their patient, but nobody wanted in the orthodoxy to hear that you could treat a patient through freedom of choice without medicines. Dr. Martin Feldman never used medicine. In his 45 years, though he's a board-certified physician, professor, neurology, he was #1 at Yale College of Physicians and Surgeons at Columbia University. Bright man, quiet man, self-effacing. He never used medicine. He used diet, exercise, proper supplementation, and de-stressing. Right? So understand, we have alternatives, but when you spend 50 years denigrating all alternatives, homeopathy, chiropractic, acupuncture, nutrition, body, mind, and energy medicine, when you spend your whole career denigrating it, you don't talk to the patients. Look at Wikipedia. Ask the anonymous editors at Wikipedia that we know nothing about. Did you ever treat a patient using natural therapies? Did you talk with the doctor that treated the patients using natural therapies? No. Well, then how are you suddenly the world's expert on it? This is arrogance and hubris at an astronomical level we've never seen. So walk away from the grid. Walk away from buying the New York Times, watching television, supporting PBS or NPR. Walk away. My clothes, made in the USA, union labor. Right? Walk away from clothes from Bangladesh. Walk away from non-organic foods. The farmers market over here today had organic, non-GMO. Support them. Support what is natural and non-toxic that leads to health and happiness. Look for the positive news. Look for the examples of people who are doing the right work at the right time in the right place and be a part of the right support system. No longer should we be priding ourselves in being a nation. Well, we don't really we're not activists. We don't get involved with the silent majority. Well, I'm sorry, but the silent majority should also be aware that when you're silent, when atrocities against your own people, let alone other people, are occurring, you're a coward. Stand up even if you're going to be knocked down. All of us are going to get our asses kicked and we're going to get on the ground a lot of times, but the courage of getting back up again and say, you might have beat me, but you've taken nothing away from me that's essential to who I am. Have the courage to speak up. Have the courage to fight back. Thank you all.
Gary Null, ladies and gentlemen. It just dawned on me I didn't introduce myself. My name's Edmund DeMarsh. I'm the editor of the Trends Journal, so I'm going to say that. So this is the start of a beautiful day here, and we have a bullpen filled with really great speakers on their way. So we want you guys to enjoy the event. We have restrooms. It's on the gate across the street to the right of the parking lot. So if anyone has to use the restrooms, that's the best bet right there. Then also to my right, in this brick building, we're selling beer, wine, other refreshments. All proceeds go to OccupyPeace.com. And this is a movement that's just starting today. So the more money that we have, the more we can do to push the movement forward. So we're hoping to have a really great event here today. And as I said, all the proceeds goes right to OccupyPeace.com. We're going to hear the Hot Damn Band will play for a 20-minute intermission, and our next speaker will be Scott Ritter. So we're looking forward to a great day. This is just a start. And there will also be someone going around for donations for OccupyPeace.com.
Check, check, 1, 2, 3. Check, 1, 2, 3. Check. Check, 1, 2, 3. Check. Check, 1, 2, 3. All right, everybody. All right, let's give our speakers a big round of applause, everybody. Make some noise. All right. Now the Hot Damn Band is here to really make it. It's already hot, so maybe we should change our name to Cool Damn Band, all right? We got a dance floor for you, and we want you on that dance floor. Come on, it ain't too hot to dance. Let's do it. Midnight hour, come on. Oh, yeah, come on, yeah. All right, yeah, come on, yeah. All right, yeah. I'm gonna wait till that midnight hour, yeah. That's when my love come tumbling down. Come on. I'm gonna wait till that midnight hour. That's when my love begins to shine. You're the only girl I know. Oh, that really loves me so. In that midnight hour, baby. Oh, in that midnight hour, yeah. I'm gonna wait till the stars come out to see that twinkle in your eye. I'm gonna wait till that midnight hour, baby. That's when my love begins to shine. You're the only girl I know that really in that midnight hour, baby. In the midnight hour. In that midnight hour, yeah. In the midnight hour. Come on, bring your elbows, come on. that midnight hour, yeah. In that midnight hour, yeah. In that midnight hour, baby. Oh, when there's no one around, baby, I'm gonna love you, yeah. Bring it down, man, bring it down. Bring it down. That's what I'm talking about. Okay, we got room for one more couple. Okay, who wants to be that one couple to have that lucky spot on the dance floor? All right, we got something for you. We're gonna bring Miss Joris Stovall to the world. A little dancing in the street. Are we ready? 3.
Check, check. Check, check. Check. Give me some sound. Check, check. All right, here we go. Calling out around the world.
wall. Come on. Baby, superstitious, oh yeah. Light us about to fall. 13-month-old baby, oh yeah. He broke that looking glass, yes he did. That little boy got 7 years of bad, and all the difference in his bed. If you believe in things that you don't understand, then you suffer. Superstition ain't the way. No, no. Very superstitious, oh yeah. Nothing more to say. Rid me of the problems, oh yeah. Do all that you do. Keep me in a daydream, yeah. Keep me going strong. You don't need tomorrow, no, no. Sad is the song, yeah. If you believe in things that you don't understand, then you suffer. Superstition ain't the way, no, no. Barry, come on out and help me out. Come on, Barry Monday. Take it out. In E flat, come on.
Yeah. Check, check.
All right, everybody, are y'all having a good time? Oh, wait a minute, come on, guys. We gotta get this going, Pete. Before we lose them.
I
One more song for everybody. The key of G. Stand by me. All right. One of my greatest favorite songs about Benny King. Stand by me. When the night has come and the land is dark and the moon is the only light. Oh, we'll see, we'll see, we'll see. No, I won't be afraid. No, I won't be afraid. Just as long as you stand by me. And darling, darling, stay by me. Oh, stay by me. Oh, stay by me. Stay by me, yeah. If the time that we look upon should just tumble and fall, and those mountains should tumble into the sea, the sea, the sea. I won't cry, I won't cry, I won't shed one tear. Just come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, and stand by me. And darling, darling, stand by me. Oh, stay by me. Oh, stay by me. Stay by me. Come on, Larry, give me a solo. Upon should just tumble and fall, and those mountains should tumble into the sea, the sea, the sea. No, no, don't cry, don't cry, don't cry. No, no, don't shed one tear. Just come on, come on, come on, come on, come on, and stand by me. And darling, darling, stay by me. Oh, stay by me. Oh, stay by me. Stay by me, yeah. If ever you're in me, I can stay by me. Oh, stay by me. Stand by me, yeah. All right, at this time we have our next speaker.
tri-state area.
Send them here.
Okay. I will still. There's still spirit. People still have spirit.
Ladies and gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, it is my pleasure to announce our next speaker. He was a former UN weapons inspector in the Soviet Union from 1988 to 1990, and he also served as the UN's chief weapons inspector in Iraq from 1991 to 1998. His name's Scott Ritter.
Don't ever threaten a Marine with a broken microphone, because I'll yell my way through this thing. Look, I want to thank you all for being here today. It's a hot day, and again, this wouldn't be happening without you. It wouldn't be happening without Gerald. It wouldn't be happening without a great panel of speakers. Phil Giraldi, Mr. Noel, Mr. Andrew Napolitano, the judge, and then me. But I also want to thank the people that made this happen. You know, we got people right now walking around the Peace Patrol looking out for our safety and welfare. We got vendors who are providing services. There's a lot of people that came together to make this happen. So I think we should give everybody a big round of applause. Now, you guys might be looking at me right now saying, why the heck should I listen to him? He's wearing a suit in 98-degree weather. That just goes to show that when people use the term expert, there's always quotation marks attached to it. But I dress up this way not only out of respect for you, but I think there's an audience that's watching this streaming as well. And so this is for everybody. A lot of people know me based upon what I've been talking about in terms of Ukraine, the military situation on the ground, etc. I don't want to talk about that. Why? War's war, man. It's either going to be won or it's going to be lost. One way or another, this conflict is coming to an end. Now, there's a lot of people out there that have ideas about this conflict. You've seen them on TV. Most of them are old and fat. And the one thing that I can guarantee is not a single damn one of them have what it takes to pick up a weapon, go on the battlefield. This war would be over really, really soon, because they'd all drop down dead of exhaustion after 1 hour. War is a tough business. I'm going to get to that in a second. But what I want to focus on right now is what happens after war. Someday this war is going to end. And at that point in time, we collectively are going to have to deal with the ramifications of that conflict. And one of the greatest ramifications is the absolute deterioration of relations between the United States and Russia. If you think for a second that this world will survive in a state of perpetual conflict between the two largest nuclear-armed nations in the world, you're wrong. The only way we survive, the current generation, the only way our children survive, the only way our grandchildren survive is for there to be a way to bring our two nations together in peace and harmony. Now, some people will say, hey, Ritter, whatever you've been drinking or smoking, I want some of that, because that's pie in the sky stuff, man. You can't deal with Russia. You can't deal with Vladimir Putin. There's no way we're going to be able to get along. I'm here to tell you that that's just a... We're going to have, for the next couple minutes, a Russian language test, or not test, lesson. I'm going to teach you some words in the Russian language. Now you're going to say, why the hell would you want to do that? And believe me, if you knew anything about my resume, you'd say, who the hell made you qualified to teach Russian? From what we heard, you can't speak it at all. That's true. You know, I graduated in college, we'll go a little war story here, with a degree in Russian history, and that required me to have 2 years of Russian language. And I studied assiduously and came out with a solid C. But it went on my transcript, and that transcript went into my Marine Corps records. And then I go into the Marine Corps, and I spend the next couple of years learning how to hook and jab with the Russians, close with and destroy the enemy through firepower maneuver, baby. My job was to live the way I grew up. Kill a commie for mommy, better dead than red, man. We are not going to let the Red Menace defeat us. I was on the front lines ready to do it. Unfortunately for me, but fortunately for the world, the President of the United States, Ronald Reagan, and the leader of the Soviet Union, Mikhail Gorbachev, decided they were going to get together and sign a treaty called the Intermediate Nuclear Forces Treaty. And they were going to get rid of an entire class of nuclear weapons that were menacing the world. Now, in order to do that, though, you need a class of people called weapons inspector. We didn't have weapons inspectors back then. We had Marines who were ready to kill Russians. And we had Russians that were ready to kill Marines. But we didn't have people called weapons inspectors, so we had to invent it. And the way they invented is to call up people that have certain expertise. We called them, the foreign area officer, guys who had advanced degrees in Russian area studies, spoke the language fluently, had spent some time in the Soviet Union. We brought them in, but they had ranks like colonel, lieutenant colonel, major, because that's the level you need to be an expert, or at least be competent in what you're doing. I was a lieutenant. Lieutenants, as anybody who's been in the military know, are competent in absolutely nothing. Okay? We like to think we're pretty good, but the sergeant knows better. But unfortunately, there weren't enough guys that were colonels, lieutenant colonels, and majors available to serve in this organization. The Marine Corps was required to generate a certain number of bodies. So they had to go down through the database. And lo and behold, up pops Ritter's name. And it says, he speaks Russian. Because it says here, he took 2 years of Russian in college. Got to be a smart guy. So they bring me on board. And almost immediately I'm ambushed by a lieutenant colonel. Last name doesn't need to be said. Well, Larry Kelly, he's a true American hero. His nickname was Pulemyot. First Russian word of the day, ladies and gentlemen, Pulemyot, machine gun. Not because he was proficient in weaponry, but because he spoke Russian so fast it sounded like a machine gun. He was the man in charge of linguistic qualifications for all inspectors going into the Soviet Union. And he locked me up in the hallway and proceeded to hit me with the most detailed technical Russian possible. I didn't understand a word. So my best broken Russian, because you see, while I was studying Russian in college, I was playing football and drinking beer. I was better at playing football and drinking beer than I was at studying Russian. So I told him, please repeat yourself. I couldn't understand what you said. He said, you don't speak Russian worth a damn. I said, no, sir, I don't. He said, you will never go into the Soviet Union. You're an embarrassment to the Marine Corps, a disgrace to the service. You're out of this organization. Long story short, June 14th, this conversation took place in February. June 14th, I was on an airplane. Advance party. First American inspectors going into the Soviet Union. Colonel Kelly was wrong. I was there. But it didn't just happen because, you see, my language sucked. Before I could go in, the military sent me to a 2-week course taught by this wonderful Russian lady. And she was so happy to have been picked to teach me Russian language so I could go over and serve my country in the cause of peace. 2 weeks she had me. And the day I graduated, she broke down in tears. Not tears of joy, mind you. She said, I have failed my country. Because you're not prepared to go into Russia. You can't speak Russian worth a damn. She was right. But nonetheless, I showed up. And an amazing thing happened when I showed up in the former Soviet Union. I was in a place called Vodkinsk. Vodkinsk is about 750 miles due east of Moscow in the foothills of the Ural Mountains. The reason why I was in Vodkinsk is they had a factory that produced ballistic missiles, including intercontinental ballistic missiles, the ones that were targeted at American cities. They were also a factory that produced several classes of the intermediate range missiles that we were responsible under the treaty for eliminating. And my job was to make sure that they didn't produce them there. Imagine, if you would, showing up outside of a factory and you have a giant field of nothing. Just a rail line and a road going into the factory and a field with nothing. Now close your eyes, open them a year later, and you have a massive housing facility, home to 30 Americans, 24/7. You have a $12 million giant X-ray machine that's being used to X-ray Soviet rail cars with missiles coming out. You have a data control center. You have schlagbaums. You have infrared measuring. You have a wonderful inspection monitoring system. It didn't happen overnight, though. And it didn't happen because the Americans produced it themselves. It happened because we were working in harmony with our Soviet counterparts to do something that was deemed to be mutually beneficial. It works, ladies and gentlemen. Imagine that. Now, I was trained to, like I said, hate the Russians. And the reason why I say hate is you can't go to war against the people unless you hate them, because you can't kill people you like. You can't kill people you love. You can only kill people you hate. And that's the God's honest truth. All right, you have to hate somebody to kill them. And I learned how to hate the Russians. Now I have to work with them. An amazing thing happened on New Year's Eve in 1988-89. I guess it's New Year's Eve 1988, ready to become 1989. I got invited to the home of one of my Russian counterparts. This is a man who built the missiles that were aimed at American cities. And he was inviting me, a Marine, who was trained to kill him and his fellow countrymen, into his home to meet his wife, his kids. We had the most wonderful night. And I learned at that point in time it was like having a veil lifted off my eyes. I realized there that the Russians are just like us. Russian people are just like the American people. He loved his wife. He loved his children. It was stunning. I learned some very important words, like drug, friend, druzhba, friendship, mir, peace. These are 3 very important words, and they suddenly had relevance. And I began to think, how the hell did this happen? That I, a guy who was ready to kill these people, suddenly look on them as friends. And then I watched the way the Russians raised their children. And what I realized is that there's a universal truth. Whether you're an American, a Russian, a Chinaman, oh God, I'm going to get thrown off a TV for that. A Chinese person, forgive me. The bottom line is, wherever you're from, what ethnicity you are, whatever you call home, you're a human being first. Take a look at children when they come into this world. Do they know how to hate? Or do they know something different? What does a child do when a baby they're playing with falls down, upal, Russian word. They help them, pomagayat, get up. That's what human nature is, to help, to cooperate, to be friends. But somehow it changed, ladies and gentlemen. Somehow there's a transition from this innocence of childhood to what I had become as an adult, where I had other words that I had learned. Words like vrag, enemy. Words like vojna, war. Words like protiv, against. All negative connotations. How did this happen? I was programmed to think that way. I was taught to hate. And the hatred came from a place of ignorance. One of the best things that ever happened to me was the 2 years I spent in the Soviet Union working together, cooperating with my colleagues, with my friends, I guess I can say that, my friends, my Soviet friends, to build something that had never been built before. A monitoring facility to make sure that they were in compliance with their obligations under the treaty. You know what was interesting? Over in Utah, the Soviets built the same monitoring facility outside of an American missile factory, doing the same work, making sure we were in compliance with our obligations to disarm. This is an amazing transformation that took place in the course of literally less than a year. When I started my job at the On-Site Inspection Agency in 1987, we in the United States and Soviet Union were on the cusp of nuclear annihilation. Sound familiar? Sort of where we are today. Two nations that didn't trust each other. Two nations that had developed and deployed weapon systems that put them on a hair trigger alert. One mistake and the world ends instantly. We were cognizant of that back then. How many Americans are cognizant of that threat today? How many Americans understand that all it takes is one accident, one mistake, one miscalculation, and all this wonderful life that we enjoy ends forever? Forever. That was the situation back in 1987, 1988. By the time I left the Soviet Union in 1990, the world had changed. Anybody who was around back then remembers Ronald Reagan, the evil empire? That's what we called the Soviet Union. But in June of 1990, Ronald Reagan went back to Moscow, sat down in front of Soviet students, and said, "We have become friends. I no longer view you as the evil empire." Come on, guys, if Ronald Reagan can make that transition, so can we. Okay? Now, what's curious today is that we as a nation have forgotten the lessons of history. We've forgotten that we did overcome all of these obstacles of hate, of ignorance. And we came together and we actually functioned in harmony with the Russian people. We viewed them as our equals. We viewed them as, again, the friend. Drug, friend. Druzhba, friendship. Where has it gone? How did we lose this? How did we let this slip away? I don't know. That's a question for historians. But what I can say, what we need to focus on, is how do we move forward? You know, when I left the On-Site Inspection Agency, you know, I was a Marine, and Marines, like all military people, are sort of addicted to medals. It's sort of what makes us tick. You know, we don't like to talk about it, but it's the truth. You put that little shiny thing on my chest, and I'm pretty proud of it, man. I did well. We all fantasize about combat awards, hooking and jabbing with the enemy, being rewarded for heroism. I was given a pretty good award when I left the On-Site Inspection Agency after 2 years in the Soviet Union. I'm pretty proud of the things that they recognized me for. Building this facility, improving arms control, improving national security. But the thing I'm most proud of is the other language that was contained in that award. And imagine hearing this today. Imagine hearing a Marine, a soldier, a sailor, an airman being given a very significant award for developing friendship with the Soviet people, for being a good representative of his nation, for furthering relations between the American people and the Soviet people. Could you imagine the military giving a member of our armed services today a medal for that? No. Why? Because you've been conditioned to hate the Russians, to think ill of the Russians, to believe that we have to confront the Russians. We don't. We don't. Again, let's talk about these words, the transition. A child is born. A child believes in druzhba, friendship. At some point in time, though, that child transitions through society and learns to view his drug, his friend, as his vrag, his enemy. He learns, instead of thinking about mere peace, he's now focused on vojna, war. He's not for something, he's protiv, against something. We need to transition back to friendship, druzhba, being friends, drug. How do we do that? I'll tell you how we don't do that. We don't do that by going to war. Remember at the beginning of this, I talked about how old fat people like myself like to get on TV and radio and talk about how tough we are. We might have been at one point in time, but we're not tough today. But I can really tell you that the guys and gals nowadays who are really tough, people with combat experience, you don't see them out there talking that nonsense. Because they know some hard truths. They know that when we say war, it means something far different. A single syllable, 3 letters, means terminal exhaustion. It means taking sand and rubbing it in your eyes so you can't close them. It means starvation, so hungry, but you can't eat because you don't have time to eat. It means being thirsty, but you can't drink because there's no fresh water. Whatever water you might have is probably contaminated with blood or the guts of your comrade that got shot moments ago. It means you will never get rest because you have to be up 24/7 preparing for the next round of action. It means every single day losing your humanity because you are compelled to kill in a cause you don't understand. That's war. And if you think that's what we should be doing, I have a couple words for you. Go to hell. All right? We should be focused on peace. We should be focused on friendship. So that's my Russian language lesson, guys. I want you to focus on 3 words that we should learn to deprogram ourselves. Vrag, enemy. No, we don't need to believe in enemies anymore, especially not from the Russian people. Voynoy, war. I just told you, no. Hell no. No war. Protiv, against. Why? Why against? Why not za, for? Instead, learn 3 great words. Drug, friend. Druzhba, friendship. Mezhdu, between. Amerikansky narod, the American people, и русские люди, the Russian people. That's the future, ladies and gentlemen. There is a template for doing it. I proved it in my life back in the 1980s. We as a nation need to reprogram ourselves so our government can once again find a path to peace with Russia, because that's the only path for the salvation of our nation and the world. Thank you very much for being here. It's been a pleasure.
Are these speakers great or what? So now just a little housekeeping. We have vendors off to our right over here. Feel free, please, in that brick building, feel free to donate to OccupyPeace.com. Everyone here should know that we are currently live streaming on YouTube and on OccupyPeace.com, so please be a force multiplier. Tell your friends, tell your family to watch. We still have great speakers on their way. So, and again, vendors here, bathrooms across the street, the restrooms, so if you guys have to use those, that's where they're located. My next speaker really needs no introduction.
Yeah, that's nice.
He is the youngest judge in New Jersey history. He's a constitutional scholar who published 9 books on the Constitution. He was the chief legal analyst on Fox News for 24 years. He's a graduate of Princeton, and he obtained his law degree at Notre Dame. And he is currently the host of Judging Freedom, a podcast that is currently reaches 1 million viewers daily. So check that out. It's Judge Andrew Napolitano.
Thank you. Can you hear me back there? I hope this day ends up for me better than it started. Because as I was walking into Gerald Celenti's office, a woman came running up to me, flailing her arms, saying, Judge Napolitano, I heard you were dead. I looked at her and I said, Madam, I'm sorry to disappoint you. She said, oh, it's not that disappointing. Why are we here today? We are here today because war is the health of the state. Because every time we fight a war, the government takes our liberty and takes our property, and when the war is over, it doesn't return anything that it has taken. When we were colonists and the British were looking for ingenious ways to raise money from us, Parliament came up with the Stamp Act. The Stamp Act required that everyone in the colonies, not in Great Britain, or there would have been a revolution there, but everyone in the colonies have on every piece of paper in their possession, every financial document, every letter, every book, every pamphlet, even a poster to be nailed to a tree, the image of the king's stamp. You went to a British government post office in the colonies and you paid for the stamp. Question: how did the government 3,000 miles away know if you had these stamps on the papers in your home? Answer: the Writs of Assistance Act, which allowed British soldiers to enter your home against your will, presenting a warrant that had been issued by a secret court in London, ostensibly looking for the stamps. Of course, while they were there, they might look for alcohol on which you had not paid a tax. They might look for furniture from the islands that you couldn't prove that you owned. They might even look to take over the house, which is why we eventually have the Third Amendment prohibiting the quartering of troops against the wishes of the owner of the house. This was too much for the American public to bear. Parliament knew this. Parliament rescinded the Stamp Act after just a year and a half. A group of very smart students at the College of New Jersey, now called Princeton, did some math and figured out it cost the British government more money to enforce the Stamp Act than they actually generated in revenue. Now, everybody knows that King George III was crazy, but how stupid could they have been that it cost them more to collect the tax than they were actually collecting? Unless the purpose of the tax was not to generate money. It was to enter the privacy of the home with soldiers, with rifles and bayonets against your will, reminding the colonists that the king was still the king. We fought, I'm going to get a little closer to you. We fought a revolution. We won the revolution. We wrote a constitution. We added the Bill of Rights to the Constitution, which guarantees that our rights come from our humanity and not from the government. So your right to think as you wish, to say what you think, to publish what you say, your right to worship or not to worship, to associate or not to associate, your right to keep and bear arms, which is not the right to shoot deer, it's the right to shoot tyrants when they take over the government. Your right to keep troops out of your house, and the Fourth Amendment, that quintessentially American right, your right to be left alone. All these rights come from our humanity. But when the government wants to assault these rights, what does it do? It wages war. James Madison wrote the Constitution. He wrote the Bill of Rights. He chose language so that future generations would know that our rights come from our humanity. The First Amendment doesn't grant you the freedom of speech. It prevents the government from interfering with the freedom of speech. Where does the freedom of speech come from? From your heart and from your head. If you believe in an almighty God, as I do, I'm an old-fashioned pre-Vatican II Latin Mass attending Roman Catholic, God the Father gave me freedom of speech. When little Jimmy Madison was the President of the United States, there was another kerfuffle with the Brits. Either they tried to take back the United States or we tried to take Canada from them. Historians are unclear as to what happened, but we call it the War of 1812. It's at the bitter end of the War of 1812, and a battalion of British troops is moving through Upper Marlborough, Maryland, and they stop and they seize the local militia, and they say, unless the town surrenders, we're going to hang the local militia at sunrise. The mayor of the town, John Harris, name important to history, but probably not known to you if you went to a government school, where all they do is indoctrinate you rather than educate you. John Harris arrested, while they were drunk and asleep, 5 British soldiers. And then he alone, without any weapons or any bodyguards, marched into the British battalion and said, I'll make you a trade. Your 5 for our 5. The British captain accepted the trade. The Brits went home. 6 months later, the war is over. There's a tremendous, tumultuous parade celebrating the victory over the British in the War of 1812. Everybody is there. The federal judges are there. The state judges are there. The state legislators are there. The Grand Marshal of the parade is the mayor who saved the city from its militia being hanged. Again, I hope what happened to him at the end of his speech doesn't happen to me. He stepped down from the podium when his speech was over, and 2 strangers approached him. One of them put shackles on his wrist, and the other handed him a piece of paper. It was an indictment by the federal government for treason, for providing aid and comfort to the enemy in wartime by returning the British soldiers. There's a trial. The mayor is put on trial. The government says, we don't even need to put any witnesses on, everybody knows what happened. The defense says the mayor is a hero. He's the opposite of a traitor. The judge says to the jury, there were no women in the juries in those days. Justice wasn't as good or as refined. Gentlemen of the jury, you will go across the street to a tavern. You will drink all the ale you want, and then you will deliberate your verdict. The foreman stands up and said, we already have deliberated our verdict. You have your verdict already? We do. What is your verdict? Our verdict is not guilty. This is the first example of jury nullification in American history, in which a bunch of 12 Maryland farmers said to the almighty federal government, get the hell out of here and go home. This could only have happened in wartime, and it might not have had the happy outcome that it did. Footnote: the Justice Department has a rule that because treason is the only federal crime for which you can be executed even if you didn't personally cause a death, only the President of the United States can authorize the treason prosecution. What left-wing pinko big government monster was the President of the United States that authorized this prosecution? Little Jimmy Madison, the same guy that wrote the Constitution and the Bill of Rights. So what happens to people when they make these grandiose arguments about liberty coming from our humanity, but when they're in charge of the government, they will crush liberty in the name of wartime? I think the worst president in American history, bar none, was Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln is the first head of state in the history of the world to target civilians and to target civilians from his own country. Abraham Lincoln caused the death of 750,000 Americans, and it didn't occur to him until 3 years into the war, maybe I should free the slaves and claim I'm doing it as a military measure as the commander-in-chief. During the Civil War, when Lincoln was subject, forgive me, have mercy on me, during the war between the states, it was not a civil war. It was not a fight for control of Washington. The southern states wanted to secede, just as we had seceded from Great Britain. Secession is as American as apple pie, and is even alluded to in the Constitution and the Declaration. Because among your natural rights, I didn't finish all of them, but among your natural rights, the last one I said was the right to be left alone. Among your natural rights is the right to travel. It's the right to leave. It's the right to leave as a group, if you want. It's the right to avoid the government. It's the right to say you're not the government anymore, because everything you have is stolen, and everything you say is a lie, and the best thing you do is to kill. Newspaper publishers in the North were saying that about Abe Lincoln. Instead of responding to their criticism, he had them locked up. 3,000 journalists in the North, not in the South, were arrested and confined in military prisons for the duration of the war. The only claim he had to that power was because we were at war. And when we're at war, the chief of state claims that everything he does is to win the war, civil liberties be damned. After Lincoln was killed, a unanimous Supreme Court invalidated every one of those arrests. It's a little too late, but it's a great legal opinion holding that the Constitution subsides and subsists in wartime as well as in peace, in bad times as well as in good. And all those rights that we have cannot be taken away just because the government and its killing machine are looking for monsters to slay. John Adams, who was the second president of the United States, not my favorite because of the Alien and Sedition Acts, nevertheless re-argued. You're going to hear from Gerald in a few minutes. The brilliant words from George Washington about the need for neutrality, the need to stay out of foreign conflicts. John Adams coined the phrase, "We shall not go about the world looking for monsters to slay, because if we do, there will be no end to what we are looking for." And when we do go about the world looking for monsters to slay, as every government, as every president since FDR has done, without a single declaration of war, every single one of them, including the sainted Ronald Reagan, has looked for monsters to slay in foreign lands because it lets them exercise more power, it lets them raise taxes, it lets them say, support the troops. How many times have you heard somebody say, I don't support the war, but I support the troops? What the hell does that mean? I don't support the war and I don't support the troops. I want them home. I want them out of harm's way. I want their uniforms off them and their weapons surrendered and having them with their wives and husbands and enjoying society and life, not looking for Russians to pick fights with, as Major Ritter just told us about. Who the hell would die for Vladimir Zelensky, Joe Biden? When FDR was president, he's either the second or the third worst. It's either him or Woodrow Wilson. Woodrow Wilson gave us the income tax, the Federal Reserve, the administrative state. He took away the ability of state legislatures to select senators and made it subject to popular election, thereby removing the influence of the sovereign states in the federal government. FDR, of course, confiscated gold, manipulated the Japanese into bombing Pearl
That's right.
Harbor. We all know that
That's
today.
right.
Because he believed that only a war would get us out of the Depression. One of the most horrific things FDR did, and he didn't personally do it, he ordered the military to do it, was the Japanese Exclusion Acts, whereby 125,000 Japanese Americans, human beings born in the United States of America, were incarcerated without charge or trial in American concentration camps in Utah. By the way, and I know Gerald Celente knows this, there were also 10,000 Italian Americans born in the United States incarcerated in a concentration camp outside of New Brunswick, New Jersey, if you know the geography between Princeton and New Brunswick. And the Supreme Court of the United States, by a vote of 5-4, upheld that monstrous violation of human liberty because we were at war. So you see my point, ladies and gentlemen, friends and colleagues. Government grows during war. I can't describe the killings and the misery that the warriors go through as my friend Major Ritter did. But if you think about what he described, it'll cause you a sleepless night. Remember what George Patton once said, when you put your hand in a wad of goo that a moment before was your best friend's face, you'll know how horrible and horrific war is. Mary Rothbard argued the last moral war that America fought was the Revolution, because the right to secede is a natural right. But every president, from FDR to Joe Biden, has taken power that Congress has freely given to the presidency and started their own war. And all of them have killed people with drones or sent the military overseas. The last declaration of war was December 8th, 1941. It was against the Japanese Empire. 2 days later, louder? Thomas, raise the volume. The last declaration of war was December 8th, Feast of the Immaculate Conception, 1941, right after December 7th. FDR had it all planned. Bomb on Sunday, declare war on Monday. You know, I got in a lot of trouble at Fox for saying the following. And a lot of trouble at Fox, period. If you measure deaths per second, the greatest mass murderer in the history of the world was Harry Truman. Because he sent a nuclear bomb to a Catholic cathedral on a Sunday morning in Tokyo when he knew that the Japanese were about to surrender, because he firebombed Tokyo, killing thousands and thousands and thousands of innocents. And he was praised for it, because nobody dared to say this is a monstrosity, this is a war crime, this is murder.
Yeah.
So you see what the government can get away with in time of war. In the Nixon administration, when the president wanted to bomb Cambodia, wanted to bomb North Vietnam, Congress enacted the War Powers Resolution. Even though it's a law, normally called an act, this one is called a resolution. It allows the President of the United States to send American troops anywhere he wants for 180 days without a declaration of war. This is a profound violation of the Constitution, which says only Congress can declare war. Why would Congress do this? Because they're gutless. Gutless. And because governments love war, I'll repeat myself. Everything the government says is a lie. Everything the government owns, it has stolen. And the thing the government does the best is to kill. Now, I have a dark view of the future. I know some of the other speakers here are a little bit more optimistic than I am. I think this is going to get far worse before it gets better. I hope that the federal government goes bankrupt. Well, it's doing it already. I hope it can't pay its bills. I hope nobody will work for it. I hope it will break apart into peaceful regional republics. So if you want freedom, you can go to New Hampshire. If you want to be told how to live and when to go to the bathroom, you can go to New Jersey. There'll be some freedom in Texas and some in Florida. And maybe, just maybe, California will shift out into the Pacific Ocean and stay there. I'm being a little facetious. In the long history of the world, only a few generations have been granted the role of defending freedom in its maximum hour of danger. The greatest threat to American freedom is not from Russia or Ukraine or Yemen. It's from the federal government here in the United States. Thank you. I expect that when I die, I will die in my bed, in my home, on my farm, in New Jersey, surrounded by my family, faithful to first principles that I have just attempted to articulate to you today. But not all of you, particularly the young people, will have that luxury. Some of you will die in a government prison, faithful to first principles. And some of you will die in a government town square to the sound of the government's trumpets blaring, faithful to first principles. When the time comes to make those awful decisions, you will know what to do. Because freedom lies in the human heart. And while it is there, no government, no military, no tyranny of the majority can take it away. But like any muscle, it needs exercise. It must do more than just lie there. Thank you, and God love you.
Hi, Judge Andrew Napolitano, everyone. I ask you all, is there a better place to be than right here, right now, this Saturday afternoon?
No, not at all.
So the speakers have not disappointed, nor did the band, Hot Damn Band. They're up next. Please mingle, enjoy your freedoms here today. Please check out the vendors off to the side. We have Gerald Celente coming up next. Hot Damn Band.
Check, check, 1, 2, 3, check. Yes, yes, that's much better. Check, 1, 2, 3.
This was
Check, 1, 2, 3. Check, 1, 2, 3. Check, 1, 2, 3. Speak it to your mic, Joyce. Check, 1, 2, 3. Check, 1, 2, 3. Check, 1, 2, 3. Speak it to your mic.
check 1, 1, 1. 1, 1, 1. Testing 1, 2, 1, 2, 3.
Bring her up a little bit more.
One, two, test, 1, 2.
Check 1, 1, 1.
And everybody come down a little bit, okay?
Get her to Mike Cannon. We have 5 Some things you have to have it.
Check 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 1.
All right, we got a little Otis ready for you. Sitting on the dock of the bay. Sitting in the morning sun, I'll be sitting when the evening comes, watching the ships roll in, then I watch them roll away again. So I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. I left my home in Georgia, head for the Frisco Bay. I had nothing to live for, looks like nothing's gonna come my way. So I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, watching the tide roll away. I'm just sitting on the dock of the bay, wasting time. To the breeze. Looks like nothing's gonna change. Everything still remains the same. I can't do until people tell me to. Yeah. A little train of food. Come on. All right, everybody, give it up for George Snowball, everybody. Come on, make some noise. When I count it off, give me some funk, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got soul. You got soul, yeah. You got soul. You got soul, yeah. You got soul. one too, my friend. You know one of you too, my brother. Yeah. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got soul. You got soul. You got soul. In your heart. In your head. In your heart. In your mind. Give my hand, everybody. Give my hand. Break it down, break it down, break it down. Yeah, she's telling you right. Come on, my brother. And I don't think I'm wait. I'm gonna say y'all too, okay? 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. You got soul. You got soul. You got soul. In your heart. In your head. In your heart. In your mind. You got soul. You got soul. She got soul. Break it down, break it down. Okay, my last contestants, come on in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 4. You got soul. You got soul, baby. You got soul. In your heart. In your head. In your heart. In your mind. You got soul. You got soul. You got soul, baby. You got soul. James Brown said, Papa got a brand new bag. Aretha Franklin said, you gotta respect yourself. Gladys Knight and Pimps had heard it to the grapevine. Down the rocks of the peace, there ain't no mountain high enough for your love. I'm telling everybody right now, your sign to the living soul. If you got soul in me, say yeah. Okay, let me look. Okay, I'm looking. If you got soul in here, say yeah. Okay, I heard you. If you got soul, let me hear you say yeah. Okay. Did you come out to have a good time tonight? Yeah. Well, that's why we're here, the hot damn man. So if you say yeah, you gotta stand up. You don't have to come over here, but you gotta stand up. Stand up, everybody. If you said yeah, and I know you said it, and I know you said it, come on, stand up. Everybody get up. Come on. Don't hold up the show. Come on. Get up. Get up. Come on. Don't be afraid. Nobody's gonna hit you. Nobody's gonna bite you. Get up. We're here for peace and love. And I'm here to make sure y'all have a good time. So when I count this band off, I want everybody to show me some love in your arms and your legs. Move like you never moved before. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You got soul. You got soul, yeah. You got soul. In your heart. In your head. In your heart. In your mind. You got soul, yeah. You got soul. Makes it all possible. Daryl, come on up here, Daryl. Come on. He's a soul man.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Oh, thank you for being here. My heart is so sad because I love Joy so much.
Louder! Daryl, we can't hear you.
Can't hear it. Well, turn it out! Hello, everyone. Can you hear me? Yeah. Hello, hello, hello. My heart is broken. My passion in life is joy and beauty. And these low-life little pieces of crap, your little politicians, politics, suck the joy out of life. Hey, I'm the governor. I'm Andy Cuomo. I'm born on third base. I thought he had a home run. My daddy was Mario. I'd be a nobody if Daddy wasn't there, and I'm going to tell you what to do. Lock down your businesses. Stay in your houses. I'm going to make up any crap I want and shove it down your throat. You're not an American. I'm the governor. I'm the mayor. I'm the president. I'm the chancellor. You're all people that have robbed us of our freedom, our liberty, and our joy of life. And this has to stop. We are on the four corners of freedom, Crown and John Street. You look over that way and you see the old, where they signed the first Constitution to New York State. Over 70% of America's Constitution comes from the Constitution that was written right over there. You can look at it. The seeds of democracy was sown here. And now we got a bunch of little arrogant clowns robbing us of our freedom and our peace. And it has to stop. We have to bring back the true spirit of America. And now, as I say, when all else fails, they take you to war. And they've taken us to World War III. It's begun. If I said to one of you, hey, give me a gun, I want to blow this guy's brains out, would you be an accessory to the crime? No. America is an accessory to the crime. They just announced they're sending another almost $300 million of our money to go keep bloodying the killing fields of Ukraine. Almost $60 billion as the roads are all rotted around the country, as the bridges are falling down. This is what they're doing. The White House, why, that's sexist. Why a White House? That's terrible. I mean, let's be really stupid. We'll make up any crap we want. The White House said on Friday, announced another $270 million worth of U.S., you ready for this? Security assistance. Isn't that a nice word for all the little stupid people to swallow? To enrich the military-industrial complex. To keep a war that would have ended if they negotiated for peace in the beginning. And again, totally against the invasion, and again, totally understand why it happened. I forgot to bring out my Trends Journal from spring 2014, when the United States overthrew the democratically elected government of Viktor Yanukovych in Ukraine, on and on and on, all the details. So I know the why. I'm against it, but they should have negotiated for peace, and they didn't. Then they go on to say, the newest batch of supplies will include 4 HIMARS rocket artillery launchers, in addition to 4 more high-mobility artillery rockets and an unspecified numbers of GLMR rockets for them. You ready? The aid package. Wait a minute, you're talking about sending weapons of death. You're calling it an aid package? Who are you talking to? I'm talking to the American people. And they'll believe anything we say because they listen to the mainstream news and listen to those little prostitutes, those media whores that get paid to put out by their government whoremasters and their corporate pimps. So we'll say anything that we want. President Joe Biden, quote, has been clear that we're going to continue to support the government of Ukraine and its people for as long as it takes. As long as it takes for what? For the war to keep going on, to kill more people? Wouldn't it be wonderful if your house was blown apart and you had to leave? Rather than peace? World War III has begun. They're only going to make it official when a nuclear exchange or a false flag happens. Just like, okay, little boys and girls, World War I began when the Archduke Ferdinand was assassinated in Sarajevo. Yeah, what's in Sarajevo? Who gives a damn about the Archduke? Oh no, World War II began when the Japanese bombed Pearl Harbor. Yeah, nothing else was going on before that. I'm telling you, if we don't unite for peace, we are going to die in war. And by the way, please donate. A lot of you have to Occupy Peace. And the lovely lady, Kelly, is coming around with a donation to please give to us, because we're doing all we can to make this happen. And we need to make this movement go global. It has to be a global movement, and it has to be much continuing and much bigger. And I thank you all for coming. I'm heartwarmed on this very hot day. So, mankind must put an end to war, or war will put an end to mankind. John F. Kennedy. John F. Kennedy, the guy that got his brains blown out because he didn't want to go into the Vietnam War. I have a photograph of me and John Connally. John Connally was the governor of Texas. He was the guy that sat in front of Kennedy that took the bullet in the back. I have a photo of me, him, and his wife, Nellie, in front of the book depository. He wanted to meet me. His first time back, their first time back since Kennedy was assassinated. As we're walking back into the Anatole Hotel, he had read my book, Trend Tracking, which Time Magazine, at the time's far better than Mega Trends, was a great book. And he said, you know, I read your book. He said, your heart's in the right place. He said, well, you don't have a clue what's going on. And neither do the American people. Because if they did, there'd be a revolution in this country. This is John Connally. John Connally, the Democratic governor of Texas, who took the bullet in the back and then became the Treasury Secretary under Richard Nixon that took us off the gold standard. If the American people knew what was going on, there'd be a revolution in this country. That was 1992. And look how much more terrible it's gotten since then. Because the media controls it. But most Americans are waking up. The latest Gallup survey that just came out, Americans' confidence in two facets of the news media, newspapers and television news, has fallen to an all-time low. Just 16% of U.S. adults now say they have a great deal or quite a lot of confidence in newspapers, and 11% in television news. And that's why you subscribe to the Trends Journal. And please do, because the more of you we have, the more we can do. And I'm going to stay on that because, quote, we all know our disinformation program is complete when everything the American public believes is false. William J. Casey, CIA Director under Ronald Reagan, 1981. And that's where we're at today. Once upon a time, there was a man by the name of George Washington. And he goes on to say, avoid avenues to foreign influence in innumerable ways, such as attachments are particularly alarming to the truly enlightened and independent patriots. No foreign entanglements, he said. It's not our business. Europe, this is his farewell address. Europe has a set of primary interests which to us have none, or a very remote relation. Hence, she must be engaged in frequent controversies. In other words, they're going at it all the time. The cause of which are essentially foreign to our concerns. They're none of our business. George Washington, a real man, cat crossed the Delaware, right? Yeah, fought the wars. Oh, not like the guy we got playing our defense contractor. Department of Defense, excuse me. Lloyd Austin? Oh, he's a former general. Oh, yeah? And what happened after he became a general? Oh, you mean he's sitting on the board of directors of Raytheon, the second largest defense contractor in the United States? George Washington, a real hero of a man, a real fighter, not like these little guys playing president that couldn't fight their way out of a paper bag if they had to. But they're happy to send us, hey, Lindsey Graham, you keep calling for war all the time, man. Go lead the charge or shut your mouth. Harmony, liberal intercourse with all nations are recommended by policy, humanity, and interests, Washington said. And talking about the military and industrial complex, and people that cared about it and knew about it, another real man who fought or saw the deadliest war, World War II, Dwight D. Eisenhower, 5-star president, Supreme Commander of the Allied Forces in World War II. His farewell address on January 17th, 1961, quote, "Our military organization today bears little resemblance to that known by any of my predecessors in peacetime, or indeed by the fighting men of World War II or Korea. Until the latest of our world conflicts, the United States had no armaments industry." Imagine that. American makers of plowshares could, with time and as required, make swords as well. But now we can no longer risk emergency improvisation of national defense. We have been compelled to create a permanent armaments industry of vast proportion. Added to this, 3.5 million men and women are directly engaged in the defense establishment. We annually spend on military security more than the net income of all United States corporations. This conjunction of an immense military establishment and a large arms industry is new in the American experience. The total influence, economic, political, even spiritual, is felt in every city, every state, every office of the federal government. We recognize the imperative need for this development, yet we must not fail to comprehend its grave implications. Our toil, resources, and livelihood are all involved. So is the very structure of our society. In the councils of government, we must guard against the acquisition of unwarranted influence, whether sought or unsought, by the military-industrial complex. The potential for the disastrous rise of misplaced power exists and will persist. We must never let the weight of this combination endanger our liberties or democratic process. We should take nothing for granted. Only the alert and knowledgeable citizenry can compel the proper meshing of the huge industrial and military machine of the defense with our peaceful methods and goals, so that security and liberty may prosper together. Disarmament with mutual honor and confidence is a continuing imperative. Together we must learn how to compose differences, not with arms, but with intellect and decent purpose. Because this need is so sharp and apparent, I confess that I laid down my official responsibilities in this field with a definite sense of disappointment. As one who has witnessed the horror and the lingering sadness of war, as one who knows that another war could ultimately destroy this civilization, which has been so slowly and painfully built over thousands of years, I wish I could say tonight that a lasting peace is in sight. You and I, my fellow citizens, need to be strong in our faith that all nations under God will reach the goal of peace with justice. Imagine these words. Imagine these words from Washington and Eisenhower. And I got these little arrogant freaks spewing out their crap of how we're going to fight to the end. Again, they knocked down they want to knock down the statue of Catherine the Great in Ukraine because of the terrible things that she did to the Ukrainian people. Catherine the Great, when was that? Oh, around 1750? You mean this stuff has been going on since 1750 between Ukraine and Russia? And you want me to get involved in it as an American? That's not my business. And how about the media? Every day, the horrors of the Ukraine war. Hey, where were you with the Iraq war? How come you weren't showing America's destruction of Fallujah? Leveled it to the ground by Mad Dog Mattis. Oh yeah, the guy that became the defense secretary? Yeah, that guy. How come you weren't showing the destruction of Afghanistan for 20 years? How about Libya? What about Yemen, the worst humanitarian crisis on earth? Brought to you by the Nobel Peace of Crap Prize winner, Barack Obama. Folks? Oh, he's folking us. He's so proper, folks. Yeah, you like the Libyan war? I want that guy Gaddafi out of there. No, Salenti, be proper. Gaddafi must go. We have to bring freedom and liberty to Libya, who has the most profitable oil fields in the world. You think we'd be in Iraq if their major export was broccoli? You think we'd be in eastern Syria pumping out the oil if they didn't have oil? We have a crime syndicate, as someone told me, that I continue to repeat. This isn't a government. Eisenhower made it clear. Our rights and our freedom have been robbed from us. Locking us down, telling us what to do. No science, only political science. That's all that counts. We are in the time of our lives. Yesterday, and again, you can't make this crap up, the guy playing the president of Ukraine, who played the president of Ukraine when he was a comedian on a sitcom, that then became the president of Ukraine, Zelensky, refuses peace talks. The Ukrainian president claims they will not stop until Russia gets smashed. If we don't stop this war, again, World War III has begun. And the arrogance of them sending more of our money to go fight and die, to me, makes absolutely no sense at all. You know, I want to thank everybody. The Hot Damn Band, these people are great, man. This is the sound. This is the sound of the soul of America. Look what it's gone to. It's gone from what? What was before? So ragtime to swing, to R&B, to rock and roll, to Motown, and now to No Town. One bad rap, man. And that's how the whole society's going down. Look at the talent, the care of the people that are here. The speakers, the band, everyone doing everything that we can. All you people being here. The spirit of America that has been robbed and stolen from us. We are going into the worst economic decline in modern history. The headline of Drudge Report was, warning, recession ahead. Job market shows cracks. No kidding. Wow, I'm blown away. We'd never have known that. Only been writing about it for months. Oh, remember the inflation was temporary and then transitory, and now in the woke world, transgendatory inflation? This is serious. As I said, when all else fails, they take you to war. And war has begun. United we stand, divided we die. I bought these buildings. I own the 3 buildings here. I make this very quick. I was looking to leave the country in 2010. And I've been traveling around. There's nowhere I wanted to go. And we were opening up the Trends Journal in Germany. And I left here on April 17th, 2012. I came back on April 17th, 2012. I was in Berlin. I'd never been there before. Berlin was grander than Paris before it was bombed out. And I spent a lot of time in Paris. And I'm saying to myself, everywhere I looked, I see a beautiful German building in all new construction. Beautiful German building in all new construction. Germany in the 1930s. The height of Western civilization, culturally, scientifically, philosophically. Where were the people to stop it? You're losing. Destroyed Dresden one after another. Where were the people? Where were the people saying, stop, stop? I came back on April 27th, and right out in that fence over there was a for sale sign that went up when I went away. I called the agent up. She came to my office on April 30th. I took possession of this building on June 1st. And then I bought the other 3. One was in foreclosure, the other one was empty for 5 years. I bought them because the seeds of democracy was sown here. And I realized I can't run away. I'm only me because I'm a lucky man. I'm a Napolitano, born in the Bronx. Born to be free. Born to be who I want to be. Having parents, may they rest in peace, my father. I shoot my mouth off, he said to me, Papagallo, you little parrot, stop repeating what everybody else is saying. Think for yourself. How dare you think for yourself? I'm your governor. I'm your mayor. I'm little gruesome Gavin Newsom, a little piece of nothing. But I'm the governor of California. I suck into the system, bow down and take it wherever I have to. Like all the other politicians. And I know because I was there. I was the assistant to the Secretary of the New York State Senate at 26 years old. I ran major political campaigns in Westchester County. I designed and instructed American politics and campaign technology, and I taught it at St. John's University. I was killing environmental legislation at the height of the environmental movement in the 1970s, working for the chemical industry. I've been on the other side. Let me tell you who the people in politics are. The people I couldn't stand in high school and college that wanted to be class president or head of the student council. And all of these bureaucrats These are people that can't get a job in the real world, that suck into the system and bow down and take it. Nobody could believe when I quit. I said, man, this isn't my kind of trip. We'd be in the back of the chamber talking. My buddies would leave me, follow to the senator, pull out his chair and help him sit down. Oh, you could blow on these chairs and make a move. I said, what's the matter, man? Cat can't sit down by himself. He needs some help. You know, Gerald, you have that kind of an attitude. You're not going to make it here. Yeah, I quit. Nobody could believe it. My mother, may she rest in peace, when I was a little kid, and an incident would happen, I didn't know what happened. She'd say to me, I hate cowards. I hate cowards. And I wouldn't, you know, do anything to disrespect my mother. Although I've done a lot of stuff in a lot of ways. But anyway, on the coward level, I grew up to be a man. Nobody tells me what to do. And I don't tell anybody what to do. And as Americans, nobody tells us what to do. You heard Judge Napolitano. You heard Scott Ritter. You heard Phil Giraldi. We're Americans. We're free to be us. That's what this country was founded upon. And they're robbing it from us right in front of our eyes. So thank you for all being here. This is just the beginning. This is just the beginning. We are going to unite for peace, and we're going to bring back prosperity for all. Thank you very much for coming. I really, really appreciate it. Thank you. And stick around for the hot damn band, because I don't know whether it was Muhammad, Jesus, or Buddha, but one of them said, you better boogie before the lights go out, because tomorrow is iffy. So we're going to hear some hot boogie. Thank you.
Ever since you put
I'm so hard to handle. Don't be afraid, I want to prove it the whole thing. I never die the love of me, the very short as the little thing, let me light up a candle, come mom, I'm so hard to handle. Oh, yeah, oh, yeah. Just for me, just for me, just for me, come on. Go with me. I'm looking up real good. I got some boys store. When I get through going it on, I got to go. Lord, in the thing that comes on up, and I love the bird. So another thing, let me light up again. But I'm so hard and I get ahead. Whoa. Little Joyce Stone.
All right, all right.
Just a little bit.
comes. I've been checking you out all day. You kind of have your own groove going on, right? Yeah. Come on, honey. Yeah. Respect. You want to sing? Yeah. Respect. We're going to spell it out one more time. Here we go. R-S-P-C-T. Find out what it means to. R-S-P-C-T. Just a little bit.
All right, Joyce Solomo, everybody. How about a little Eddie Floyd? Knock on wood.
And to my
Key of
dancer.
E. Key of E. Knock on wood.
You said grapevine?
I don't wanna lose this good thing, no, no, that I got, no, if I do, I would surely, baby, surely lose love, from your love is better, yeah, than any love I know, like thunder, lightning. The way you love me is right. I think I'll let it go. Oh, baby. Ain't no secret. That woman, no, no, no. She's my loving. She sees through it, yes, she does. That I get in. Just one touch, you know it means so much. Oh, come on. Ain't no secret, no, no. That woman, no, no, no. She's my love, love, no. She sees through it, yes, she does. That I get in. Just one touch from her, yeah. right, Joy Stomo, are you ready to do a little
Yeah.
Proud Mary, huh? Oh,
Thank you so much.
son of a preacher man.
Appreciate that. Definitely appreciate it. C.
Okay, key of C. Proud Mary, come on.
We're gonna start it slow. All right. Now we've had our Aretha moment and whoever else we had, everybody else. Now we're gonna have a little Tina moment here. It's something, a little Proud Mary. Because every now and then, we think you want to hear something nice and easy from us. But there's just one thing, you see. We never, ever, ever do everything nice and easy. We do it nice, but sometimes we do it rough. So we're going to take this song and we're going to start it nice and easy, and then we're going to do the finish. We're going to do the finish. How do you think we're going to do the finish? Lovely. We're going to do the finish rough. Woo! Yeah. Here we go on that Proud Mary. And if you know it, you can sing along too. Left a good job down in the city, working for the man every night and day. And I never lost 1 minute of sleep, worrying about the way things might have been. Big wheels keep on rolling, oh, the Proud Mary keeps on rolling, yeah, rolling,
a solo, everybody. We haven't done any blues.
Thank you, lovely.
And the blues and the B flat. One, blue sugar. 1, 2, 1, 2.